Kiss me long, strong, and consecutive. No short snort.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with talented New York City jazz singer Nancy Harms. She spoke with me on tour while she was in Rome, Italy, about her new February 2016 release called Ellington at Night. And as history has shown, it's another performance on CD that has gotten some great reviews. Originally from Clara City, Minnesota, she left college to become an elementary school teacher, but several years later she went to the Minneapolis-St. Paul area to chase her jazz dreams. Over the course of our interview, she talked about this new album in length, why she loves to travel, how she relocated from Minnesota to New York City, along with much more. Please dig this interview, my friends. Thank you for taking some time to speak with me. Ellington at Night is a great album, and I'm happy to talk to you about it.
Well, thank you. So glad you like it.
So let me go ahead and start off here. Obviously, as we established, you're in Rome. Give me a snapshot of what has been going on with you. Are you kind of in the throes of promoting the album? Kind of give me an idea what's going on.
Yeah, well, technically the album was released February 16th. We did a little pre-release tiny tour in Denmark in January, and then I did a show at the Standard in Copenhagen for a month. That was a different thing. That was a Bossa Nova Gets Gilberto tribute show. I came here and we're just about to start the Italy tour, 2 nights in Rome and then Bari, and then up north to Valenza and Torino. And then I head back to Denmark and we do about a month of shows to promote the album. And then I head back to New York in April, and on the 13th we're at Dizzy's to celebrate there. And then a week after that I head to the Midwest and we stop in Chicago and Minneapolis, Indianapolis, and then from there on out we're kind of building stuff. But that's what we have so far in celebrating the tour, or the album.
Now that you're in Rome, you're a long way from home, your Midwest roots in Clara City, Minnesota. Give me an idea. I did notice in your bio that you didn't grow up with jazz. It didn't happen till later. But what about your childhood planted this seed for you to want to sing and get into music?
I mean, I've always been singing from a young age. I started performing in public about age 4. And I guess that's one of the upsides of the small town is that there's always plenty of opportunities to sing. If they know you sing, they ask you to sing at everything. I sang at church a lot, and I had this friend who played piano. She could read music really quickly, so we would just throw together pieces. So I got a lot of practice singing in public and school events and public events. So singing's always been a big part of my life. It was just finding jazz that was a bit trickier. I mean, honestly, the thing I remember hearing first is on television. Harry Connick Jr. was on a late night show, and he was so funny and charming. And then he got up and he just was swinging so hard, and it was just so appealing to me. I was like, "What is this?" And slowly started to become a part of my life. There was no one around me listening to that, so it was kind of an odd thing, no community for me. But yeah, and then I went to college at Concordia in Moorhead, which is more of a choral-based school, a great choral school. And I sang in the choir there, and they had a little jazz band, and I asked if I could sing with them. That just seemed intriguing, and it went pretty well, but there was no training for me there as a vocalist, jazz vocalist. And then, I don't know if should I keep going?
No, you're motoring exactly where I wanted to go. The one question I did have is when you got out of school, you decided to become an elementary school teacher. Why did you decide that route versus going straight in and become a singer professionally?
I really didn't know what that looked like. I had not seen that. I'm from a small town, and there's not a lot of people making a living as an artist, or honestly, people taking that idea seriously. This is what I'm going to do. Oh, okay, sure, great. That's a great hobby. So it took a minute for that to just see what that looked like, to realize that, okay, I can do this, even if I'm from a small town. Why can't I have a dream and follow this? My dad was like, why don't you just take a job that pays the bills and see what it's like to be an adult in the world and see where that takes you. So I did that for a little bit, and I was pretty good at it, and I loved working with kids. So there wasn't anything particularly wrong about it, but deep-seated there was something just not sitting right. I was really discontent and anxious about the future. And then I was kind of this thought in the back of my head that I wanted to sing with some more jazz, just to try it. I kind of thought maybe when I'm 50 it'll be something I'll do, sing in a jazz club. But there was just this little seed, and some random guy from college said, hey, we're playing at some coffee shops. Do you want to join us? And I was like, oh, yes, definitely. I've been thinking about this. And I started playing, and people would ask me, how long have you been doing this? You sound so natural. It sounds like you've been doing this for a long time. And I was like, no, I just really got started. And eventually then I just got so discontent teaching in a small town that I left and started exploring. And I met my mentor in Minneapolis, and that's kind of the beginning of when it really took off. He was sort of became my jazz school.
So you moved there in 2006. It says that things really started taking off by '07. What was that like to kind of go after the dream and realize it was working?
It was so surreal. It was like, peeling off a skin or shedding a skin and becoming a new person. I sort of feel like that when I tell the story, that I'm telling it about somebody else in a way. It doesn't feel like me. I mean, there are parts of it, of course, that are me, and those people in my life at that time are really still important to me, and I'm connected to them. But it just was so not the right path for me, that it feels like kind of a stranger was doing that, living that life.
Yeah. Well, then that culminates to your first album, In the Indigo, in 2009. What was it like to also take a further step into that dream, realize, and have your first album out?
Well, it was, again, really surreal because the response was wonderful, and it was, I was so doubtful that someone who had just gotten started like that in jazz could do something that people liked that much. It just got such a great response that it kind of inspired me to think, okay, I want to move to a place where there's an opportunity to really make this as big as I want, to try to tour, because I'm in love with traveling. And so I thought, well, here we go. Now's the time. I'm not getting any younger. I already was teaching for a few years. So it's time to take the plunge. So then I moved to New York City the year after we released that album, off of that momentum.
And then you when you get there in 2010, you play at the bar next door in Greenwich Village to a sold-out crowd. What was that like to be in New York and to be in front of a crowd?
I was so nervous, just crazy nervous. I remember my mentor who he came in because we're a team in this now. He flew in for that gig too, and he had to talk me through it. Just say, you know how to do this. Just do what you do. Lots of that kind of thing. I mean, it was surreal. It was amazing. The first time I ever sat in at Birdland, Gianni Valenti, the owner of the place, walks past my table and he's like, "You sounded great," and I was like, "What?" I know it's a different kind of culture, but in Minneapolis, to get the club owner to come and do that is just doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
Like in that way, and to have some guy from New York that owns one of the most famous clubs in the world come over to say that, I mean, I just probably had my jaw on the floor for a while.
Absolutely. Well, and that all kind of leads into this new album, Ellington at Night. Give me a kind of an idea of how this album came about, how you feel about it, kind of just a general feeling.
Well, I've been fortunate to work with this wonderful pianist, Jeremy Siskind, in his band, Housewarming Project, I believe it's called now. It's kind of had some different names. But we do, it's like a chamber jazz group, and so he writes these amazing songs, and we've had just so much opportunity to play together and in intimate settings and over, night after night. So we've really built a rapport, and he really listens to me, and he really listens to the lyrics. And so it's such a joy to get to work with him. He just, you really feel like you can get somewhere. A lot of the barriers are gone. Anyway, so back up then, the previous album I released, Mood Indigo, an Ellington tune, and night after night, especially when I was in Denmark, I did the show for like 3 weeks in a row where I'd introduced this song, and I just kept building intrigue by the way that Ellington chose to name the song indigo rather than just feeling blue, something, but like this color that I'm fascinated with. Indigo is one of my favorite colors, and it has such a story to it, and I'm like, what does he mean by that he chose indigo? There's something kind of tempting about this color. Anyway, it just sort of led to this fascination, and then thinking about him as such an interesting man, and his work is so beautiful and stately and yet flirtatious, and it kind of led into that. And then I found out he had synesthesia, which is he saw colors and textures when he heard music, and that just was so intriguing to me to think about the way he was, orchestrating and writing things according to that, like seeing all these different colors, because I'm a very visual person. So just as a figure, I thought this guy is so fascinating. There's all these fantastic songs about what happens at night and the things we feel. There's all these extremes of this, beautiful city flirtatious life, out on the town and the twinkling stars. And then there's also, nighttime kind of heightens our isolation, when we're not feeling very well and our heads kind of crack a little bit. All these things that happen at night, and he has so many songs that talk about that. And that became really intriguing to me. I was just going to do it as a show and ask Jeremy to arrange this. And we put on the show, and the response was just incredible, the kind of things people said. And he said, this is just such a perfect match. I actually was going to record a totally different album, with some originals like I did with the previous one. And so I wasn't ready to just say, yeah. But the thing, it just kept coming back to me and saying, you have to record this. It's like a little present set on the steps for you. Take it.
Yeah.
So we recorded it. I mean, it just Jeremy, with Jeremy's help too, it was able to take something that's sort of palatable, like this composer that people love, Ellington, and to get to fully be myself within it, and we can express, this whole thing, dive into the different vibes and feelings of nighttime.
This album takes you out on the road. You're in Rome. You're traveling all over. What is it like to take this music to a different crowd, to go around the world and present your music?
I mean, it's ultimately fascinating, right, to see how different crowds respond. And sometimes it depends on the club, but there is a lot of cultural differences too. So I love seeing that. And I mean, jazz is really embraced in Europe on a larger scale, or percentage-wise, than it is in the U.S. So that's always kind of a joy. And then you go to France, and the artist is everything in France, right? To be in that kind of culture, it's just like you have a permanent smile on your face. You're like, are you serious? you hold us up that high? It's such a an honoring feeling. So it's a great joy. And actually, this club in Norway, Herr Nilsson, I mean, it's just a beautifully curated place that I had people almost screaming after a ballad. They responded so strongly to this ballad that they would talk to me after, blah 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 blah, and crying. I mean, it was incredible that they were that into the tenderness and the details and the vulnerability of it. That they would go there with me. I really love that.
Yeah, that's cool. You did so. Obviously, Ellington's influence. You mentioned Harry Connick in the beginning. Who else has been very influential with you as far as jazz is concerned?
I'd have to say Shirley Horn is just one of my favorites, because you hear her, when she sings, you hear what she's saying, you hear her in it, and I love that so much. And Diane Reeves is also it has that too, where you really hear her. It's really soulful in that sense of human soul, that you can hear that person in there. And so those two are probably two of my favorites. I've been influenced a lot by Gretchen Parlato and Kurt Elling, Billie Holiday too. I had my time. Sometimes it's just so sad. I can't bear it, but she's just so amazing too.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's stick on this track of nostalgia, especially with this Ellington at Night. There's a lot of nostalgia about Duke. So if you could go back in time and witness a jazz show, where would you go and who would you see?
Well, I don't know exactly where I would go, but I mean, who wouldn't want to see Louis Armstrong live? That would be at the top of the list, I think. Yeah. And it would be fun to see Duke too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this. This is my final question, and it packs a little bit of a punch. Everybody has their perception of who you are. The fans that are going to see you in Rome, your business associates, your family, friends. But who do you think you are?
I see myself as a storyteller through song in a lot of ways. I love the connection that's possible through music. That's what I strive for. That's why I go out there, is because you want to have these moments where people's humanity can come in contact with one another. That's what I'm aiming for and love about what I get to do.
Wonderful. That's perfect. Nancy, thank you for taking some time out and talking to me about yourself and this album, and good luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Nancy for her time, her music, and that story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or visit theneonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Hold me close, thy gaze is back to back.
Neon Jazz.